Kevin Blackistone also appearing. Pablo Estori is with us, and Mr. Bob Ryan. Good luck to you all. Today, it's the NBA in 2018, a.k.a. the Kuzma Olynyk takeover. It's college in 2018, the Wofford Revolution, and also did Dabo dab a little too much into negative recruitment
Jackson
with
Carmen.
Urban Meyer.
Jackson. Let's go.
Let's go around that horn. The Tournament of Champions. All right. It's a big moment for all of us.
Huge.
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive banter. Here's Tony Reale.
Kyle Kuzma, the heat checking all over the place last night. He had 38 career high, and it was a result of the night in the NBA. Lakers beating the Rockets. Houston's first loss in a month, first loss of the season with Chris Paul. They lost Chris Paul partway through. He has a strained Chris Paul. Start the Tournament of Champions with Bob Ryan. Start with the Lakers, Bob. What do they have in Kuzma?
Well, they have something very special, it seems, and I must admit that a year ago at this time, I was unaware of his existence on this earth. And when I first heard about him, I said, well, I wonder what Spanish team he played for. Turns out he was at Utah. Turns out I was missing a great show.
I don't know if you should be admitting this in the Tournament of Champions, Bob Ryan.
Who knew that the Lakers would have a Rookie of the Year candidate not named Ball? But he is very legitimately a Rookie of the Year candidate. I mean, what's not to like about the guy? This isn't his first big scoring game. This is his biggest so far, and it probably won't be his high-scoring game. They have something special. This was a big win for the Lakers. Every win they get's a big win because this is a transition, bounce back. Hey, here's what we are going to look like someday season for the Lakers. And every big win like this, I don't care where they finish up, they'll be going back, looking back. Remember that night that Kuzma dropped 37 and they beat the Rockets? And, God, that was when we knew we had something.
They remember it. I hope they remember it as 38. Pablo, 38. How meaningful a win was this for the Lakers last night?
This was a big step forward for them, and Bob shouldn't feel too bad, by the way, because the Brooklyn Nets seemingly didn't really know who Kyle Kuzma was either, despite drafting him, because they then traded him with Brook Lopez for D'Angelo Russell and Timofey Mozgov. So, that out of the way, I think it's important to note that Kyle Kuzma, at the very least, looks archetypal, and I don't mean that he is the best player in the Western Conference or anything like that. I just mean to say that this is what future NBA stars increasingly look like. The guy is 6'9", 220. He's one of those formerly positionless guys, those quote-unquote tweeners who can play some defense, who can defend the perimeter, protect the rim, but also shoot all of these threes. Like, this is the type of player that the Warriors actively seek out, that the Celtics actively seek out, and quite honestly, this is the last time that anyone like the Nets will make a mistake on passing up a guy who looks like this, let alone plays like this.
Archetypal. There we go. How about you, Kevin Blackistone?
Wow, I didn't know we were awarding the NBA championship and MVP all in this show as well. That's what it sounds like. All right, let's slow down a little bit. This was their third win in their last 11 outings, but it was a good one because it was against arguably the best team in the West, maybe the best team in the league. Of course, minus for much of the game the stick that stirs their drink in Chris Paul. But Kuzma's a nice player. I mean, as Bob alluded to, he's put up 30 before this year. He can shoot it like Pablo said. He can get to the rack. He's a really nice player. And what you saw in the Lakers is, you know what? They've got something there with all those young players. And we know we talked about Ball all year long, but now we can talk about Kuzma and some of those other guys. They got a nice future.
Sarah Spain.
Yeah, I don't want to rain on Pablo's parade because I do think we've seen some great stuff from Kuzma. We've also seen a lot of players that look very good on teams that don't have a lot else going on. And that might be a little bit of what we're seeing now with Kyle Kuzma. Now, granted, he takes on a Rockets team that's been spectacular. They beat a Harden-led team when Harden's got 50-plus points. But that being said, I still think what this is just a good win for a team that's growing, a team that needs to mature, a team that needs to see what they've got. And it's not that terrible of news to the Rockets that they see their win streak snapped, except for the fact that Chris Paul is injured. Hopefully only a 2 to 4 week injury. If it's something more than that, it is something to be worried about. But I think that this Kuzma train maybe slow down a little bit. I am looking forward to seeing him play, but just ask Paul George what happens when you leave a team that has nothing else on it, how great you look elsewhere.
Sarah, have you heard 2 to 4 weeks for Paul? Because right now we have him ruled out for tomorrow against the Clippers. And I guess my question is, how do you play Chris Paul injury number 2 in this season after we know he missed, a couple of weeks earlier in the year?
That was just a report that I read from a doctor who said an adductor strain like this is likely 2 to 4 weeks, so I'm not speaking from my own doctoral experience. I'm just going with others' recommendations.
Okay. Bob Ryan, how do you think Houston should play Chris Paul injury number 2 on the season? Should they be more
cautiously, naturally? I mean, they worry about the big picture. They're worrying about April, May, and June. What they now know is what they can be. They know what they can look like. That with Chris Paul, what it means to the team. They know that. There's no need to panic or to worry about the short run at all. Take care of him. Make sure he's okay. But we now know what they can be, and that is a championship.
Same answer for you, Pablo. Conservative and not worry about the short run.
Yeah, it's about the postseason, but I will say, like, if we're going to read tea leaves here, the trainer comes out of the tunnel after examining Paul last night, according to reporters who were there, and he immediately goes and talks to the owner of the team. That is not a great sign if you're that level of worried.
I don't know if it's a great sign that Pablo's reading tea leaves and then Sarah's actually talking to a doctor, or at least gaining information from a doctor. And
reading the leaves.
Sarah, you were just like a Coldplay song away from appearing in Scrubs there. I was pretty impressed. We'll move on. The LeVar League, let's talk about that. Between $3,000 and $10,000 a month for high school graduates who don't want to play in college. That's his move here. NBA rules, NBA arenas. Could LeVar Ball's idea work, Sarah?
All right, first of all, we're talking about the money since you mentioned those salaries. That could be potentially upwards of $500,000 a month in player salaries alone. That doesn't count employees, venues, equipment, salaries for the coaches, salaries for the marketing department. I don't know where he's getting this money from, but the estimated total of somewhere around 400 to 700 big baller shoes that they've sold and however many T-shirts that say stay in your lane are not going to fund an entire league. It took them 8 months to send people shoes, and they weren't even shoes that people ordered. How long is it going to take him to get this off the ground? I don't think it's something we're going to need to worry about anytime in the near future because I don't think it's even going to happen.
That's a very
There's
logistical
already
answer.
a G League.
A G League, okay. Very logistical answer, but the L League, the LeVar League, although I guess you don't want to call it the L League.
Take the L League.
Anybody else. Kevin Blackistone, the idea of it. Is he onto something?
I appreciate the idea of getting kids in high school who want to follow that train to the NBA or get on it or at least be at the stop, who don't want to go through the college system as it is. I understand that. But the problem with the system, to me, as he has set it up, is that it takes college basketball off the hook. The NCAA is operating right now within a contract that's paying them $10.8 billion over a 14-year period to televise college basketball. There is plenty of money within the system now to more equitably remunerate the athletes who are playing the game. And that's what needs to be fixed. We don't just need another minor league.
Pablo Torre.
But here's the difference, KB and Sarah, on this. I don't enjoy LeVar Ball for his business acumen. I enjoy him because he's the guy who got rejected from a frat and said, you know what, I'm going to start my own frat. And you guys aren't invited. I'm going to do things my way. Like, this is just
old school.
a resilience and a rebelliousness that does something more akin to an art project than a business operation. He's saying, look, you guys say you're capitalism? No, this is capitalism. This is what happens when you own your product. And on that level, this is wildly enjoyable to me because he is an agent of chaos. Do I think he's going to start the anti-NCAA revolution? No. But do I think that it'll get people to think and talk about whether this sort of a thing in principle makes any sort of ethical sense? I hope that they do.
And how about you, Bob Ryan? You're on the record, I believe, thinking one and done shouldn't even apply, that if players want to become professional, they should immediately, correct?
Yes, you're correct. And I think that that is the case, and I think they just should be able to come out with the understanding that they may go to the G League. They may fly prop planes. They may have difficult lives. They're not going to be glamorous lives. They can go to Europe, and if they have the wherewithal to do it. I mean, they don't need this league, okay? They have the G League. There, it's existed. They could go there if they want to. And I don't want to get on my soapbox today about colleges. I don't think that's the issue, Kev. I really don't. I don't think that's the issue here at all. Issue is about LeVar Ball and his ability or not or inability to pull this off. And count me among the profound skeptics who say this guy hasn't been able to organize anything worthwhile, and he's not going to be able to organize this either.
Sarah after the horn.
Yeah, I agree with KB that obviously the NCAA system is flawed, and it's something we've been all looking at for years upon years. This is not a new thing that someone barges in and says, this isn't working perfectly for everybody. So yeah, Pablo, he's an agent of chaos, and so have many other people been, and they haven't been able to pull off any meaningful idea. The G League is a better option for parents who want to send their kids somewhere, not college right now,
Pablo,
and so is Europe.
many agents of chaos, but not many who have this audience. We talk a lot about before NBA lockouts. Well, what if the players made their own league? Now, that is fanciful and insane in a parallel track, but the idea is, what if labor had more power? That's what's interesting to me about this cockamamie scheme that will absolutely not work, for the record.
All right. Well, it wouldn't be the first time that athletes have done this. You go back to the 1880s, and that was the first professional baseball union. Players actually stepped away, formed their own league, and tried to get it off the ground. It didn't work so well back then. I appreciate LeVar Ball's audacity in this. I just continue to want to go after the college system.
You can respond.
It was 1890, the Players' League, and it lasted 1 year. And the fact of the matter is,
Bob was
players
there.
alone
I was
can't
there.
pull something off.
My takeaway is here that Pablo wants to support this, the idea of this, and he's used the word cockamamie, insanity, and chaos and fanciful. So
I want to see that movie. All the words movie poster I want to watch.
I'll give LeVar credit here. I mean, was he thinking about this 3 months ago, 6 months ago, when his sons were going to go to UCLA and there was going to be a succession line of balls?
No, yesterday.
UCLA? Clearly not. He's only put this together in the last week or two since UCLA went away and he went from UCLA, and this is already where they are. Well, this is where we are right now. It's the Tournament of Champions. You can't have a Tournament of Champions without Kevin Blackistone. He's in the lead, 14. Bob Ryan's got some work to do in buy or sell in 2 minutes.
You've done this.
1890.
You're a one-time champion of the Tournament of Champions, Kevin.
Buy or sell.
Jackson Carman, Action Jackson, let's go.
As Davos Sweeney hearing he landed the #1 recruit out of Ohio. Here's how Ari Wasserman of The Athletic covered it. Sweeney told Jackson Carman during his recruitment that Urban Meyer is on the back end of his career in terms of years left. Carman saying it wasn't a major factor, but an underlying one. Sweeney's response to that, quote, "We might have had a lot of conversations. I cannot recall specifically, but it sounds like something that might have come up." All fair and love in recruiting, Sarah, or does that cross the lines of negative recruiting?
Well, that particular quote, I'm gonna sell all day because I don't know, it might have come up. It's very Sean Payton. I made a choking gesture. Well, I don't remember that. Don't ask me about it. But as far as recruiting goes, listen, I'm sure there are far worse things that have been said behind closed doors, and if we all heard about them, we would be outraged. But we don't, because this is what happens. And to me, it doesn't feel like he crossed any real bounds here. Urban Meyer left his last school right around the same time, and the temptation to leave might be there again. So might as well put it on the table.
I cannot repeat on this show what John Chaney used to tell me about Raleigh Massimino when they would recruit the same player in Philadelphia. But trust me,
because
because it's John Chaney. All right, it's John Chaney. But the bottom line is, this is just recruiting. It's kind of funny, and who knows? Maybe the Herb Street thing may have come into play here too.
Pablo Torre?
Yeah, there are a couple of weird factors. The fact that this dude was warring with Ohio State alums and recruits and players is another factor in that decision, I'm guessing, too. But Urban Meyer should be careful because there is that Bruce Feldman story from his book, Meat Market, about how Jevin Sneed was being recruited by Urban Meyer, and he asked Urban Meyer about why Urban Meyer was seen in a video watching Tim Tebow, and he said to Jevin Sneed, Tim Tebow, we're recruiting him as a linebacker, not a quarterback. So all of this stuff, when it gets on the public record, looks bad in the light of day.
Well, you think it's happening on all sides, so no big deal. How about you, Bob Ryan?
I'm buying it. It's business as usual. Let me tell you about real negative recruiting. There was a prominent coach who was, as a young assistant, was accused and alleged to have been telling recruits they didn't want to go to a rival school because the coach was dying. Now, that's negative recruiting. And not this. This is just business as usual.
We'll move on. Buy or sell to Ezekiel Elliott's agent. Putting out the photos of Ezekiel Elliott looking ripped. It was 6 weeks in Cabo where he worked out when he was suspended. And his comeback press conference, he refused all comment on the suspension. KB, did he need to comment?
No, he doesn't need to comment. And especially when someone asks him, what did you grow up? What did you learn? As if he's some infantile. No, absolutely not. He gave his answer, and not only that, he teased his documentary. Go watch it.
Pablo Torre?
Yeah, look, I want honesty and thoughtfulness as a rule, but when it comes to sensitive subjects like this, do I want to hear Ezekiel Elliott rail against the pseudo-justice system that punished him? Maybe, but do I also want to hear him potentially make things worse in terms of how we talk about these sensitive subjects? No, and in that case, silence is preferable even if honesty otherwise is the rule.
Bob Ryan?
I think it's smack of arrogance. It certainly was rude, and I do think that it implies to us that we can infer, I should say, that he's learned nothing and that he probably thinks he's innocent.
Sarah Spain, is that the read you got on this?
Absolutely. You don't want to answer the first question about what you've learned, that's fine. But then when they follow up with how did you spend the last 6 weeks, that's a pretty easy question to answer, and it's one you should be expecting. When they then ask you about the documentary that is clearly being produced as a PR move to make you look better, and your response is you figure out what the message is, well, when does it come out? I don't know. You had 6 weeks to think about how you wanted to return to the team, and with a modicum of PR help, you could have made yourself look a little bit better. Instead, we're talking about it now because you decided that you didn't want to respect the questions and just answer them.
We'll move on. Buy or sell 3. Rams putting Greg Zuerlein on injured reserve. He's out for the season. He's leading the NFL in scoring. Pablo, losing your kicker. Big deal, little deal, or no deal?
It is a big deal because we laugh when Roberto Aguayo gets taken second in the second round, I should say. And if this guy was a second-round pick, it would have made sense. And the fact is, the proof is in the fact that the Rams are now looking to potentially use Roberto Aguayo. This is a problem for a team. They're looking at these binders full of kickers because this was the guy they counted on all year.
Brian?
In a world in which the extra point is no longer automatic, I think this is very important, particularly for a team in which they have had a very large percentage of points on field goals. He's had 15 points multiple times. That's a lot of points. So absolutely important.
Yeah, 38 for 40 on the year for 158 points. And the guy they're bringing in, Sam Ficken, it's not like he's going to have 0 points. You don't take away all those points. But this was a safety blanket for a Rams offense that part of the reason they were so impressive is because when they couldn't finish off with a touchdown, they fell back on him, and he could make it from almost anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who's kicked 2 60-yard-plus field goals in his career. He extends the field for you. And in the playoffs, when it's a close game, you know what? At the halftime, when you want to try a 60-yard kick, this is a guy not only can try it, but can make it and give you extra 3 points.
Those scores. Winning the tournament champions is like kicking a 60-yard field goal. That's what it's like. Pablo, Bob, it's been an incredible run for you guys to get here on the last show of the year, but the run ends right now. Pablo, have a wonderful Christmas. Bob, Brian, to you and yours, Merry Christmas. We'll see you in 2018. Sarah Spain, Kevin Blackistone. Are we excited?
Yes.
We're excited. The final showdown. And for panelist Sarah Spain, Kevin Blackistone, panelist of the year. The anticipation is killing you. I hope it'll last. We start with Wofford 79, UNC 75. That's the 197th ranked team in the country, beating the defending champs on their home court. Bigger win for the Terriers or bigger loss for the Tar Heels, Sarah?
Well, when you ask the Tar Heels in a couple of years if they remember any major losses, they'll probably all seem a little fuzzy. But if you ask any Terriers fan for the next decade what their biggest win was, they're going to say this amazing win.
Absolutely, no question about it. It takes me back to 1982 when Virginia went to play Chaminade, the swashbuckling Silver Swords of Chaminade, an NAIA team, and they beat them. Beat Virginia and Ralph Sampson.
That's a great story. It has nothing to do with Wofford. Give some love for Wofford. Don't be talking up Chaminade, Virginia from 30 years ago. Move on. Celtics gave Kelly Olynyk the hero among us tribute in his return to Boston last night. Standing ovation in between quarters. And then he beat them with the detonation dunk of the season. How should Celtics fans feel today, KB, cheering a guy who just beats them later in the game?
They should feel really bad about it, just like Wizards fans do from seeing Kelly Olynyk score yet another bucket, the Game 7 last year. Come on, what was that all about?
Trying to win the Tournament of Champions here? Sarah, please.
They should feel amazing because whoever believed there'd be a Kelly Olynyk revenge game, and this is a guy who they said was a hero among them, and he proceeded to play like one, so it's their own fault.
You should feel amazing right now, Sarah. Kevin's giving you the Tournament of Champions. Showdown 3, quote, I'm going to have to cut it in half because I'm just over it. That's a human talking about a human body part. South Sydney's Angus Crichton's finger amputated so he'll be ready for the start of the rugby season. Is that the right call, Sarah?
Absolutely. At first I thought this 21-year-old idiot is prioritizing rugby for the rest of his life. Then I found out it was a fleshy, knuckle-less nub that doesn't do anything anymore. And I say, good riddance, Finger.
Yeah, this just goes to show you, this is what we call dedication. Ronnie Lott did it back in 1986. He had to cut off part of
Another answer from Kevin where he's talking about somebody else. Take the FaceTime Sarah Span you are our panelist of the year.
Whoa! Oh, wow. I never thought I'd get one of these. This is amazing. I'll tell you what, guys, everybody remembers the names of the Ken Jennings of the world, but rarely do we remember that he's not the all-time winningest. In the Tournament of Championship, he fell. Just like KB, Pablo, Bob Ryan, to the relative newcomer. Who could have imagined this underdog storming onto the scene with such charm, such grace, such wit? What an incredible victory. I will cherish this forever.
I'm giving myself this.
And now she belongs to the ages. Sarah Spain, the panelist of the year for 2017. What a year it's been. And we wouldn't be here without you. So we show our appreciation with our Around the Horn holiday card this year. It's an advent calendar where each panelist takes us through one of their favorite holiday traditions. We've seen Woody's train at his home, KB's eggnog, Sarah's been bar hopping. It's available right now on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, MySpace, Coinbase, and LinkedIn.